All right, what up, everyone? This is Stealth Sam. Welcome back to the World of Warcraft podcast. Skirmisher is here with me as normal. We are back from a pretty long hiatus and a little bit of time off. What you been up to during the time off?
Not playing Legion. Totally dissing my friend as I dropped the franchise right in the middle, and he's just getting into it, playing all these re-rolled characters that I made him play, and leaving him with a bag wondering exactly what happened.
Yep. I remember today I got the call and we weren't going to play anymore, and I thought, man, we haven't been playing that long, but it was a good run, and I've been keeping up with it a little bit. We still have some friends that play and talk to us about it, but we sort of left it behind. But today's podcast is going to focus on the future.
Yes.
We got the band back together, as we talked about in some of the podcasts, and once we got them all back together, some of them are still there. Some of them are still in Kill Jaden and Tomb of Sargeras and all the things that we didn't get to occupy ourselves with.
Yes.
But now there's been these announcements with the new patch, with the new cinematic and everything, and the nostalgia and everything that we're going to get into. Have you been playing anything during this time? Have you been playing anything good while we've been out?
As far as MMOs, no. However, that's not exactly true. I have been playing something on and off, but it relates to what we are going to talk about today.
Oh, a teaser. I like it. That's a little segue.
It won't take too long.
Yeah.
It's going to be a quick strip down.
Yeah. I do look back on all the time that we did this. Finally, I told this little story, a little anecdote that some of my friends might know. At my work as a motivational poster, one of the last raids that we did, I printed off a big 20 by 24 poster, and it's the DPS chart. From one of the bosses of the last raid.
Nice.
And there's a particular rogue on the top of it.
Uh-huh.
So some days when I'm feeling sort of bad, I just, shoot a glance up there, and I remember I got
just these colored bars with names.
It's yellow, and there are people that that I respect, but smashed. And
yes.
But yeah, it makes me feel good. All right, so let's jump right in. All right, so today we want to talk about some of the news and upcoming things. BlizzCon ended recently, and watching that, they had some announcements. They had a new cinematic trailer with
Battle for Azeroth.
That's right. And then you've got the Banshee Queen, and she's fighting the Mass Resurrection guy. What's his name?
She's fighting everybody.
Yeah.
She just gets in a fight with someone every expansion.
Right. So she's the war chief now. She's throwing down. So they're moving the story forward, which is good. But that's not what we're here to talk about today.
No.
For the most part, there was a big announcement during all that.
Yes.
And that announcement was
classic vanilla servers for World of Warcraft.
Classic vanilla servers.
Let all the old fart original gamers rejoice.
Right. For the people who maybe not have listened to all of the podcasts, an original elder statesman of the game, OG Skirmisher, started at the very, very beginning.
Yes.
But myself and some of the other people that play were not there in the beginning. We came in right before Burning Crusade. So I was able to experience just a little teaser, little tidbit of vanilla WoW, and but I never got to raid. I never got to do anything like that, because by the time we got to 60 or 70 or whatever it was at the time, we were going on into Burning Crusade and doing that. So they're putting back vanilla servers, and you could play bootleg, ghetto, vanilla servers before to get the experience, but now they're taking charge of it. It's going to be good. So what are your thoughts, your initial thoughts on that announcement?
All right. Well, it was a surprise, but not a surprise. I think Blizzard as a company, and seeing as how they have not published their subscription data since they lost a lot of subscribers and Warlords of Draenor and the debacle they had over that, I think they pulled it back a little bit with Legion. They went into it. I enjoyed Legion better than Warlords of Draenor. Legion drew upon a lot of the nostalgia that a lot of people had from Burning Crusade, which a lot of people regard as best expansion. Usually it's either Burning Crusade or Wrath of the Lich King that are in contention for those two, because they have the most iconic villains in it, Illidan and the Lich King, of course. But in Legion, they brought back a lot of that, and there had been some ruckus that they had with some people with classic servers, with private servers, and there had been kind of an outcry. This petition that had been passed around, over 200,000 signatures, and there was a famous line from the Warlords of Draenor Q&A, where the guy asked, "Hey, are we going to get these classic servers?" And they were like, "Well, you think you want that, but you don't." And that's whew. I mean, that's like a big slap in the face for a lot of people. And that guy right there, he was toting the line. I mean, I don't blame him for saying what he's saying, because with what they've been talking about here, with what they're going to be doing with Classic, it's going to be an undertaking. It's going to be an undertaking. But I think that they're doing it now because, A, they've seen that nostalgia can kind of sell an expansion. B, maybe, although I don't know, maybe there is a subscription where, Blizzard Activision is killing it. Subscription wise, they're making money. Overwatch, they're making billions. The company is not in trouble. But World of Warcraft might be less profitable than it was. And if they can add something extra onto the game to bring subscribers back into the fold, attached to retail or whatever like that, and it's a classic realm, then I think they're going to explore that, and that's what they've decided to do.
Do you think that those servers and stuff like that forced their hand, though? Do you think it's one of those things where somebody was making money off of an idea, like, isn't that where Dota's from, right? It was an old mod for an old game, but It was so popular, they bought it and turned it into something. So you think they maybe have planned to do that all along, or do you think that phenomenon, like you said, forced their hand, like, man, we can't let this money go, so let's just do it, even though they maybe don't want to?
I think it was forced. I think that there are people at Blizzard who really enjoy classic vanilla WoW. I think those people are not in the reins to make it happen for the grand scheme of things. I think this is a decision that they never would have gone down without pressure from the outside, because they're moving forward. And there's a lot of people who say, don't look back, just look forward. However, Blizzard, as I said, is famous for ripping off its own ideas and writing that into the future story. So this is just another example of it. But I think if they do this right, it won't be so much of a ripoff as a return and a tribute to what they've already done. They should be proud of it. So that's my outlook.
Well, and maybe the last point on this topic is, do you think that this has something to do with... See, I wonder about optimism at Blizzard. Like, if you're making Battle of Azeroth, is it because you're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel? They're sort of going back to Orcs versus Humans.
Right.
They're sort of retelling a story from the beginning, and maybe they're circling the wagon a little bit, saying, okay, we can see the end of MMOs in the future. We're the last one because we're the best one. We're Lord of the Rings. We're Star Wars. We're whatever you want it to be.
Right.
But when we die, it's over.
Yeah.
And so maybe they're doing it for some of that too, because they can say, what is the last thing we could do? If they come out with another expansion and another race, maybe that makes money, maybe it doesn't. But this is something almost, they're going to do something with this.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting idea, because looking back now, you and I have had this conversation before. The people who are making these games and the people who are coming out with these ideas are us. We're of an age where the ideas and the topics that we enjoyed growing up, the creators of content and games are us. They're 30 to 50-year-old people, men and women, who grew up in the same time that we did, grew up in the age of the internet where video games started. And so the things they like are often the things we like. And then you run into a little bit of that, maybe pulling teeth to get back. Why are there no more of this kind of game? Why are there no more of this kind of game? So I think it's an interesting idea. I think it's good that they're doing it and they're embracing it, though, because I think it was time.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so on to the next topic is sort of what seems the impetus for this and where some of this may have started is private servers, people creating these servers. And tell us exactly what that is and sort of what that's about.
All right. Well, I teased a little bit of it earlier, but private servers, if you do or you don't know, are specialized servers run by people independent of Blizzard Activision, and it recreates their world. Now, these servers are not legal. They are not legal. They are stealing the intellectual property of Blizzard Activision in order to make their world. They are violating trademark and all that. However, it's the equivalent of burning MP3s off the internet for a lot of people. It's a gray area and a lot of people don't care. Now, these servers have sprung up for a couple different reasons. One, you have people who just want to make worlds where you can get like the best gear by talking to an NPC, and it has a certain kind of rule set to it. The administrators will determine that. Or you want to spawn 3 Onyxias in Stormwind to ravage through it, have at it. You can do that. However, the private servers that have been the most popular lately have been the classic vanilla servers, maybe Burning Crusade servers that are locked specifically into the patches of the original release of the game up to patch 1.12 before Burning Crusade. That's old talent trees, old combat mechanics, gear with crazy itemization on it, maybe some bugs in there. Stuff wasn't itemized, classes were unbalanced, but that is very, very appealing to many, many people. And the private server phenomenon, really, the main gist of it came about with a private realm called Nostarius, which was probably the closest scripting to actual Blizzard vanilla WoW. If you were a warrior and you started off in your beginning area, if you play on retail right now, you start off with like 80 attacks, you walk out, you just cleave through stuff, and you're never in any danger of dying. In vanilla WoW, you're going to kill a mob. If you pull 2 mobs, you're going to die. And after you fight those mobs, you're not going to bandage. You're not going to run to the next mob. You're going to sit down and eat to get your health back. So private servers they appeal to a select group of players who prefer, for lack of a better word, hardcore mode. They enjoyed the game being difficult. They enjoyed the game with its quirks, but it's not the game pissing them off from dying over and over that makes them come back. That game had community, and that is the big, huge word. If there's any other word I can say about a private server, it's community. People looking for other people, forming groups, making relationships as you level up with other people, and not being able to transfer to another server or name change, and your reputation follows you. So if you're a jerk at level 10 and run in and steal that mob, well, guess what? Level 18, when that guy runs into you and you need a group to go to Black Fathom Deeps or whatever, guess who's not getting invited to the group? So private servers have really, really come up a lot in the past few years.
Well, let's hit 2 points there. The first one, to backtrack a little bit, I think a lot of it is nostalgia, and I think not enough can be said. I keep referring to us being of a certain age here, for what you cut your teeth on.
Right.
I joke with the people that I work with at work that are younger than me about not having cell phones when I grew up.
Right.
And so I am not above calling you on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I will call you on the phone and have a conversation with you because that is what I'm comfortable with, because that's what we did. And there'll never be a replacement for that because that is what I did. And so now, looking at these servers, even if you look back, your new gamer's going to say, man, you had to go out there and eat in between each mob. Didn't it take you a long time to level?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what was fun.
Mm-hmm.
You look at games like Lineage and other MMOs that were ridiculously farm heavy. Mm-hmm. But that was the point. The grind was what added value to the payoff. It was the journey.
Right.
It was getting there. It wasn't just, man, I really just want this piece of gear. Can I just play for a week and get this piece of gear? And that leads me to the next topic of what you're talking about. And as someone who played other MMOs, as I did, what I cut my teeth on in the MMO land was a more hardcore. It was Final Fantasy 11, and I know you played a lot of EverQuest and other stuff, and those games were hard.
Oh, yeah.
And those games required you to be competent at what you were doing, and to your point, required you to be socially nice enough to deal with the other. That was the point. Massive multiplayer.
Yes.
I always have this one comment that I tell people. I'll say, you need to be playing Mario Brothers, and they'll say, why? It's because it's just you, and you can't deal with this.
Right.
And but I remember on that game there was a couple different characters. It's so old now, nobody will know who they are, but you knew. Don't deal with this dude. He's a shyster. Don't deal with this dude. And they would shout in town for groups. And the people who were nice and competent and knew what they were doing, well, maybe not even competent. Maybe those guys were like really good players, but not able to adjust to the social dynamic of an MMO. Were shouting in town for groups, whereas I had a link shell. And I typed in my link shell, hey guys, go in EXP, who wants to go?
Right.
This guy's in town going, will anybody do something with me?
Right.
And I think that is one of the draws of an MMO that a lot of people miss, because to so many, maybe not even younger people or younger players who didn't experience an experience like that, it's just about the gear. I just want a big sword. I just want the fancy armor. I just want to kill a dragon.
Right.
Whereas we played a game that was almost derivative of D&D or something, where I wanted a game where I shared an experience with other people. Nothing made me feel better than when I was with those group of people. We'd kill a big monster and craft a new tunic and give it to them, and they'd be like, wow, man, that's really cool, and that was what it was about. So I think going back to that is what maybe some of those people are yearning for. Maybe not even the challenge of it, which the challenge is important because it bugs me. I think a lot of video games are watered down. That's why I like Dark Souls and stuff like that. It harkens back to my youth.
Right.
This game is hard. So I think that's interesting. I think private servers and catching on to that are probably people under that same mentality. People who played Vanilla WoW, who played hard, grindy, serious MMOs and want that challenge now. But it's sort of like collectible card games. When I was younger, I had the time to play. When I was older, I had the money to play.
Right.
Yeah. And now, when I was younger, I had the time to play a serious MMO. Right. And when I was older, I don't have the time, but I still want that passion. I want to have to grind for months. I hated the idea. I watched those videos on YouTube of people leveling in an hour or 2 hours.
That's crazy.
Their friends run them through to level 110 in 2 hours or whatever. And I thought,
because it's all about, I got to get the high level so I can grind artifact power or something. It's not about the experience of leveling, and you don't make a single friend as you're getting a 110.
And you know what that teaches you though, and I don't know if we'll get into this in some of the topics though, but a long grind leveling wise, or a long grind not only adds value to the end, it also teaches you what you were doing. If I grind a warlock to 110, I'd never play a warlock for the few listening.
Favorite class, warlock incoming.
If I got my friends to grind me that in 110 in 2 hours, I don't know how to play that class. I don't know what I'm doing. But when I played Final Fantasy, it took months to level to 75. And during that time, I learned exactly what my character was about. And I learned exactly how to pull. I learned exactly how to skill chain. I learned exactly how to drop aggro. And I knew that. So when I joined a big link shell when I was 70, and the guy said, hey man, you got to drop aggro here.
Right.
Do it.
Yeah.
But if I'm 110 warlock and they're like, hey, shackle this demon or whatever, I'm like, look, which button is that?
It's a learning experience. The other day, and as I said, I have been playing a few things. I have been playing on a private server to refresh myself up so that when Classic launches, it won't be so super foreign. But in the private server experience that I'm having right now, the other day in a group, I'm out and I'm tanking in an instance where you have to use crowd control and you have to pull your mobs selectively one at a time.
Oh my god!
And the healer was putting a heal over time effect on me as I pulled, and I said, "Don't do that." And he was like, "Why?" And I said, "Because when I pull these mobs, it's going to tick health, and they're instantly going to run to you." And he was like, "Okay, man, all right, I didn't know that." Next pull, he shields me, and I said, "Hey, don't shield me." And he goes, "Well, what's wrong with shielding you?" And I said, "Well, I don't generate rage from the mobs hitting me. I have to take damage to generate rage to be able to use this Sunder Armor ability to get aggro." And he was like, "Oh man, I didn't know that." Next pull, we're doing a whole bunch of stuff. He casts these heals all over the place and the mobs run to him. And I say, "Hit fade." And he goes, "What?" And I said, "Hit fade." And he's like, "What's that?" I said, "It's an ability that you should have learned 2 levels ago. You hit it and it reduces your threat. You've pulled threat off. If you hit fade, the mob will run away from you and come back to me. I said, but you've pulled too much heal aggro. You know, a lot of people could joke and say, if you're a decent tank, your healer never would have gotten aggro.
That's probably your DPS getting hit.
You know, yeah. We're not. I'm gonna blame it on DPS not killing the selected mob and splitting the damage. But but just differences like that, learning about it is so different.
Yeah, well, even me playing Rogue, I remember the threat meters were important.
Oh, yeah.
And now we play games where there weren't threat meters.
Yeah.
There was playing it by ear meter.
Right.
But as a Rogue, I remember fighting Prince Malsar at top of Karazhan. And part of the way through the fight, I would catch the tanking threat and I'd vanish and start again. And then you had to, oh my God, the name of the spells. It's not. It's like the feint.
You'd have to feint.
That's right.
Feint.
And I'd be hitting the button and fainting, and they're like, "I'm not fainting. That's taking up energy." And I'm like, "You got to. We're gonna get killed." I'm like, "You're not doing enough damage to have to faint." You know, like I'm like, then I'd vanish in the middle and start all over again.
Yep.
And those kind of mechanics, you know, make the game to me more fun.
Absolutely, they do.
I think for sure. All right, let's move on to the next piece here. All right, so going on from that topic, the next idea for that would be, let's say you've got a player who started recently. They play now. They've enjoyed the fruits of time, taking the edge off of WoW. Whether for better or worse, they're playing a different game than the people that started.
Right.
Can that person thrive? Can that person exist in a vanilla server? Because what if they say, "Ooh, that sounds fun," they go there, they get a bad taste in their mouth, and then they cancel their subscription? Maybe that's even a concern for them because that player is not the same. They're not looking for the same experience. And maybe they're going to get something they don't want. Mm-hmm. Do you think they can, even like I said, even exist? We talked about having a reputation in an MMO. Right. Can that person play vanilla WoW?
I think it depends on the player. Like if so many of the people who played vanilla WoW when I was an adult, #Mark, I'd run to 13, 15-year-olds. Those guys got family and kids now. I mean, a lot of time has passed. And it really, really just depends on what you are looking for from your experience. If you have only played, Wrath, or let's say you started WoW in Missa Pandaria, or let's say you just started in Legion, it is going to be a vastly different experience. Now, that retail player is going to be like, man, WoW Vanilla is just so unpolished. The interface is clunky. I don't have these abilities. I gotta respec. The mobs take like 1,000,000 hours to kill. The raid bosses don't have as many mechanics. I mean, I play like this boss over here, and I got these cool mechanics with 3 different phases and everything like that. From that viewpoint, retail is going to be vastly superior to what you're going to be able to get in Classic WoW. The people who are going to play Classic WoW are going to be probably one of 3 people. You're going to have the old hardcore guard who cut their teeth on it, have that nostalgia in their blood, and say, yeah, man, I want to go back and play it. I'm tired of playing with all these casuals or whatever they want to say, and come back and play a real man's game. Which is kind of funny when you think about it, because compared to other MMOs, vanilla WoW, I mean, it was hard, but it was hardly hard, in the grand scheme of things. It was still a solo game. I mean, you had groups that you had to get for certain quests, but it was a solo game. Then you're going to have the curious. That's the person on retail who goes, Classic WoW. Oh, let me hop over here and figure out what the heck? No. This is ridiculous. No, I'm going to go back to my experience. Yeah, bandages, cooking. I got to raise my first aid as a caster who has a heal spell? You mean I'm going to use first aid because I'm going to be so low on mana in this boss fight? I want to use first aid instead of using my mana to heal myself, to get my mana per 5 to kick in, all that stuff. And then he's going to quickly go back. And then, you'll have that other one that might drift back and forth. And it depends on how they set up the subscription. But I think you can have a good time with vanilla WoW, but it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for the flash and the glitter and all of that, you're not going to get it there. But I think the majority of people who go and play vanilla are going for the community. Mm-hmm. They're going for the community more so than any other thing. I mean, if current retail World of Warcraft had no looking for group, no looking for raid. If it had elite quests in the world that you had to organize groups in order to go and get, if they just took out a few of those things that make it easier for current players to do, but which were asked for by the community over time, so Blizzard will give you something, it's very hard to take it back.
Right.
So if they had that might make all the difference in the world. But I think it's mostly everyone playing together and having that experience of leveling the character, learning it, and having some sand in the game. Because once you get your character to 60, you've invested a lot of time. The world speed record for leveling a character from 1 to 60 in vanilla World of Warcraft is over 4 days.
Wow.
4 days, and that's 4 days, and that's the record. That's with like a hunter going to here, going to there, dying on purpose to appear in a graveyard, resurrecting so you don't have to run that distance back, because there are certain places in vanilla WoW where to run from here to the mob you have to kill takes 7 minutes one way, and then you have to run back. So that right there is a huge investment. Usually most people leveling a character to 60 takes them months. It takes them months to level. And once they get there, they're invested in that character. It's not alt-friendly. It is not alt-friendly. But you're going to make sure that your character hopefully has a good rep and knows what he's doing.
I think that's what maybe people, when I was talking about this with some other people, was, what are you looking for? And they're thinking, well, you want to go back to, weird armor sets and long raids, right? And it's like, that's not really what I'm asking for. Like you said, it's the community I'm asking for. I have a drawing that a friend of mine did that was in one of our groups, and it's me as my character and the 5 of us that did so many things together on that game. And I still have that like framed, like it's in a box now because I'm married, but but I still have that picture, and it's us in the game with our cool armor on, and that character will forever be important to me. Mm-hmm. And those people, even though some of them I've never met, I will always know who they were. I think that's the experience that the vanilla WoW people want. I don't think I would ever get that if I started Legion today, brand new. I don't think I'd ever have a picture of my character on the wall kind of thing, because, power level me to 110 in a day. Yeah. Oh, let me buy this boost for $40.
Let me buy the boost.
Yes.
And instantly get there.
Oh, and please, thank you, Blizzard, for the little training when you boost your character. That really taught me how to, crowd control and do it.
I'm glad you implemented those catch-up mechanics that I had to grind through a few months ago, but now as a new player, I don't have to go through that headache that people who've been playing your game all along had to go through. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I think people need to see that. I think they need to understand what the player like me or you, or the people that we raided with for so long, the experience they're looking for. It's not that. It's not just the old weapons and armor and characters. It's the style of game that we signed up for, and that game has evolved so much, or maybe even devolved a little bit, depending on how you want to look at it. WoW has evolved into something that we didn't play at the start.
Right.
You know what? If vanilla WoW looked like the current Legion stuff, that would be fine. Mm-hmm. It's not just that, So,
right.
I think that's an interesting idea, because that's sort of hard. I think the world's going so fast now, to get off on a little soapbox. The world changed so much so fast. And now all you get is a new iPhone every year. Oh, yeah. I always use the instrument thing. When do we come up with a new instrument? Don't say sousaphone. It makes me mad. People are like, sousaphone. Yeah, the one in the last million years. We don't, new technologies and stuff, it trickles out now. Whereas from when we were young to now, it was video games, iPads, and cell phones. And now it's a new cell phone. And we hadn't quite got to flying cars and stuff yet.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so to break it down a little bit, though, I think one thing we need to be careful of is when you look back at vanilla WoW, you look at it so fondly. It's waking up on Christmas morning. It's one of the reasons Michael Bay movies rub you the wrong way, is because that's not my youth anymore. But if you go back and watch an original version of the shows you liked when you were little, maybe they don't hold up that well.
Right.
And you're like, wow, is that really what I was watching? So do you think that it's, as your term, through rose-tinted glasses, do you think we're looking back on that nostalgia-wise as what we liked because that is what we enjoyed, but if we actually get what we're asking for, will we be, not as happy with that as we think we're going to be?
I think it's a danger for some people, for sure. I think there's always a tendency to romanticize the past and what happened before. And if a lot of people are thrown into that environment, maybe somebody will think, man, I don't remember it being like this. Or are we really sure that Blizzard got its scripting right when it redid these servers? Because they said they threw all that crap away. Maybe they didn't script this right, because I could have swore this NPC, did this instead, and this mob didn't act like this. So to be sure, vanilla World of Warcraft had its problems. I mean, it had bugs. It had stuff that was super inconvenient. And it's a matter of, which patch do you do? Do you start at the very beginning, with no patches? Do you start at 1.12? Because there's a whole thing with, different debuff slots on the boss. When you first started this game, it was like, okay, well, you're going to take a flight path. All right, you're going to take a flight path from here to here, because they're not connected. You know how before you could take a flight path and you would go from like Orgrimmar, and I want to fly to Thunder Bluff. I'm just going to fly there, or I'm going to fly to Thousand Needles. Well, at the beginning, you had to fly from Orgrimmar to Crossroads, Crossroads to Camp Taurajo, Camp Taurajo to Thousand Needles. And you had to be there physically to click on the flight thing, and then they patched that, because that was a pain in the butt. But you have all sorts of other stuff. In Undercity, you couldn't ride your mounts in Undercity. You could ride them in Orgrimmar. You could ride them in Thunderbluff. But in Undercity, couldn't ride any mounts. Why? Because it was indoors. And you couldn't use your mounts indoors.
Right.
I mean, you have things like that.
But do you think that's... is that going to be a really big problem, though, where convenience stops and making the game too easy for the original crowd begins? Where is that line? Do you think Blizzard has any chance of finding that line?
I think that they're going to have to work on it. And the fear from the hardcore, vanilla enthusiasts is they're like, we're going to have a classic server, and then they've had these surveys rolling around on the internet. And it's like, well, where are we going to go? What patch are we going to start in? Even people who agree on vanilla disagree on that. What rule set are we going to be using? How are we going to release the content? Because there was a lot of content in vanilla. Are we going to start? Naxxramas is released, Zul'Gurub, or are we going to stage it? And if we stage it, like we did on the original release, what's our release schedule? Do we keep it to exactly how we did and release this stuff over a period of 1.5, 2 years? Maybe that's a long time for some people, and they don't want to hang around on a server for that long. Is it going to hold their interest? And if we speed it up, and let's say we go through all that content, then what do? What about the people who want a classic experience and want to experience all that? Is it going to be a, hey, make your character on classic now, or you're never going to see all that stuff? Because we're not going to keep resetting this and making new classic servers unless the demand is there. I mean, if the demand is there, they'll always do it. But there's a little bit of anxiety in the community about that. Yeah. And what are you going to do?
Well, I think a lot of it will be based on interest. One quote that I like to use that one of my favorite sports analysts uses, he says, the answer to your question is always money. Like, no matter what you say, right, your answer is money. How long is this going to go? Where's the money? Can we make this? Is the money there? So I think it's got a lot to do with that. Like you said, they started and they have a huge... I think that will be a huge point for them when they release things. How long, like you said, how long do you want to go? Because let's say you go back to reread your favorite book, and you hit that slow part in your favorite book, and you haven't read it in 10 years, but now that you're reading it again, oh yeah, so-and-so, yes. Right. Oh, this is the boring part. Mm-hmm. Flip those pages, And can you do that? Because they're going to hit a point where I've already experienced this. I don't want to do it 50, some people, and maybe not for everybody, but they're going to say, I don't want to experience this 50 times again. Go ahead and hit me with Zul'Gurub. Okay, I've experienced that again a couple of times. That year wait was... I think knowing it's out there might be a problem, because when you played originally, you didn't know what was next.
Correct.
But now you know. Like, come on, go ahead and release this. Yeah. Go ahead and release AQ40.
We've been raiding Blackwing Lair for ages and ages. When are the other raids going to come out? Right. Come on, let's go ahead and do it.
It's definitely a can of worms.
It's going to be interesting, and there's a lot of, not conspiracy theories, but there's a lot of conjecture on it, because you have some people who are saying, Well, where's Blizzard going to go with this? Are they committed to a vanilla classic server and it's fixed, no changes, no alterations, no nothing forever, and you can go there and eventually it's going to do this? Or is it going to repeat? Are you gonna have the cycles repeat? Or there's the real big conspiracy theory. It's like, well, what if they decide to do alternate timeline? Well, what do you mean? Well, a lot of people say, well, there's only two things that they can do. They either A, branch out and make a Burning Crusade classic server, and then they do all the Burning Crusade all over again and do all that until they eventually catch up with whatever expansion they're on then.
Right.
So you keep repeating that. Or you do an alternate timeline and you release new content in a vanilla setting, which would be optional for the players to go down a different road that they didn't originally go down. And how different would that world be? I mean, look at what they did in Warlords with the time shifting of Garrosh going through the portal and then bringing stuff from 35 years ago into a current timeline. They ran into a big bag of, stuff there. But they could snap their fingers and decide, okay, well, we're going to add some content to Vanilla WoW that was never in the original game, but maybe it won't alter what happened later on, but it's something new for you to experience for all of you people who have finally reached the end and are getting tired.
I think that would 100% be a function of how well it does recently, because I cannot imagine Blizzard allocating resources from a game that is going downhill, maybe even slightly downhill, but going downhill. So rather than our people working on the future of Legion and Battle of Azeroth and all that, let's go back and make new content for it. That seems a bit far-fetched, unless it's just all the rage, and then their subscription numbers fly up, and then I can see that. But I think... I think that might be a bit of as cool as that would be. It might be a bit of a stretch. So, all right. So let's tie a bow on this a little bit. We're back. We're doing the podcast again. At least this one. If we do start playing Vanilla WoW, tell me some of your thoughts on what do you really have high hopes for? Any predictions that you might have for this game?
My final thoughts for it are I support the idea. I'm glad that they decided to do it. I think it was a demand in the community. I think, yes, there is a little bit of rose-tinted goggles, but I don't think it's going to matter. For the people who really want it, it's going to be there for them. Now, Blizzard is committed to doing this, which means in perpetuity now, they have to maintain a classic vanilla server. That's part of their business model now, and that's a huge undertaking by them. And them declaring it makes it serious.
Right.
Now as far as when this is going to happen, that's like the big up in the air. I do not think they're going to release it with their newest expansion, right, Battle for Azeroth. And I do not think it's going to come out beforehand. And the reason why is because if people enjoy vanilla too much, you do not want people being siphoned off from your retail to go back to old thing. Because in a way, Blizzard's proud of what they've done, but they're still proud. And that would be kind of a kick in the nuts if they were like, man, people prefer playing our game from back in 2008 over what we've done, right now, or 2000, even before that. So I think they'll probably release Classic at the very minimum, probably 6 months after they release Battle for Azeroth. Could be a year. I mean, they had some infrastructure to build. They already have people with private server data that they can use, but Blizzard, like I said, they're kind of proud. They're not going to go to an outside firm to rewrite their own stuff. And let's be honest, they're a multi-billion-dollar company. They could get this done in a month if they really wanted to. Right. It just, like you said, it's the money.
Right.
Now, is it going to be attached as part of a bonus to a retail subscription? Or is it going to be something else? Okay. So,
all right. So, like I said, what does that package look like, though? Is that something where I log in, I've got my level 1000 Legion character pimped out gear, and I can just click on vanilla? Like, what is their What's that look like? What's the final version of? When do I log in? Is it connected to my main account? Is it? I can see my level 60 warrior beside my level 120 reskin dwarf. We'll talk about that in the next podcast.
Right. Well, I think there's a lot of questions related to whether or not it will be integrated into the BattleNet that Blizzard has, which is connected across servers. It's connected in between different games. So if you're playing one Blizzard game, you can message someone playing in another Blizzard game. Totally different game. It might be. It might be. Or they might want to make it its own bubble. And it's a question as to whether or not it will be attached as part of the retail package. I get that as a bonus. It doesn't cost me any more per month. And maybe it's offered separately. See, that's the thing is the pricing would be like, I don't want to play retail because I'm that kind of player or something. That guy's thinking that. And then Blizzard says, okay, well, if you want to play Vanilla WoW, it's only $5 a month instead of $14.99. It's $4.99. And then you can get it separately. What that's going to be, who knows? I think it will come down to, I mean, like you're saying, what can Blizzard make the most money off of? It's like, all right, we got this crap, and then, but you don't want people to blame that on the success or the non-success of a product, because there is some concern in the crowd. It's like, man, people only play private servers because the crap's free. You know, once you have to start paying for getting your butt kicked and leveling slow, you really think it's going to be that popular? And plus, that's like people playing from all over the world. You got, you know, Russian, French, you know, Chinese, whatever, all playing on the same server. What's it going to look like with a purely, you know, servers broken down by regions or things like that? Right. You know, are you going to have that cool community that you want to flesh it out? And I think that's a lot of that's a lot of speculation to the negative. I think Blizzard is probably going to have an option where when you log in, just like you have that button that says add-ons, you know, where you can click it, and they made it add-on friendly where you could click it and you could do your add-ons in game, and you couldn't do that before. I think there'll be a little button and it'll say classic WoW. And when you click on that, it will flip that screen that shows your 110 awesome demon hunter with his artifact weapons and all that, and flip, it flips to a character screen, and guess what? It just shows your old-fashioned vanilla characters on it.
I think that would be good. Yeah, I think they need to try to get it in there as seamlessly as possible. And I agree that if they just give it to you free if you already pay, and if you just want to play that, you know, I think that's a good idea.
It wouldn't take away from the subscription numbers either.
Right.
It wouldn't be able to tell who's coming back for
exactly.
Yeah.
Because people would use that against them. That's a double-edged sword that they would reveal. So I think that's interesting. I think that's an odd part of it, you know, because when you were mentioning that, I thought that doesn't matter. But the more I thought about it, I was like, that does matter. How do I play that game alongside this game? Am I trading one for the other? Am I going back to one and giving up another? You know, but that's, you know, cutting off your nose to spite your face kind of stuff. Like, they can't hurt themselves for that. They can't. Yeah. They can't cannibalize their own.
It has
thing.
To be a pay model of some kind, whatever it is, I believe, because how else could they sell it to shareholders? Right. You know, if you're a shareholder in Blizzard Activision, they say, hey, we're going to be releasing our newest expansion. Pay models are continue to be the same. It's still on a subscription model. We still have millions of subscribers. We're also doing a whole new server, but whoever wants to play that can play it for free. And then the shareholder is going to go, well, why is it free?
Right.
You know, you're just letting people like get on and play that version of the game free and be like, oh, yeah. And Blizzard guy's like, yeah, but that's like an old version and everything like that. And the other guy's going, well, wait, man, don't they have like, you know, 800,000 active accounts on like that Nestarius one? What's our subscriber count currently in retail, and how many of those came away from retail to play those servers because of content reasons? Right. And then you get into that whole shebang. So
it's all about their bottom line. That's why they released Diablo 3 and Heroes of the Storm. They can't make another good game.
Absolutely.
Because they cannibalize their people. They keep making these crap games with Blizzard on the title.
Got nobody else to copy off
Seriously.
of. You know?
I played Heroes of the Storm.
We're the Family Guy of MMORPGs. We're just stealing everything from The Simpsons.
That's awesome. Okay, so here we are back in the saddle a little bit. My hopes is that in another little while, maybe we can we can do episode 6, and we'll talk about those reskins and the new classes, the new races, and the stuff for Battle of Azeroth. But as always, Skirmisher, I appreciate you coming out and chatting with me on this topic. Always. And thanks to everyone out there listening. And as always, thank you. Subscribe, like, hit that button.